Phar Lap, the wonder horse. Your donation to maintain this monument, thank you. I wonder how much money they get each week into that donation box. Let's go now. Now we're looking down into Phar Lap's fountain. This is his fountain, and of course there is no water. Why is there no water? Do you think it's because no one puts any money into the donation? I tell you why there's no water in Phar Lap's fountain. Because of this sign. This is the sign on the State Highway 1, the road that runs through the middle of New Zealand, and this is their sign to say there's a Phar Lap statue here. Could that be the reason? This is the reason. Timaru Tourist Promotions Limited, which is my car. State Highway 1 business directories. I've been trying to promote State Highway 1 business directories and Timaru Tourist Promotions for 20 odd years, but no bugger will give me a hand. That's why the trough's empty. That's why Phar Lap needs a wash. So there he is, the wonder racehorse of the world. Built this marvellous statue. I wonder who built it. Let's have a look at the sign here. The First Sovereign Trust Phar Lap statue. Memorial Gardens, unveiled on 25th of November 2009. The sculpture was Joanne Sullivan Gessler. The Phar Lap Trust is proud to present this life-size bronze statue of Phar Lap, galloping over a map of New Zealand with his front foot placed squarely over Timaru, a firm reminder of his South Canterbury heritage. The Phar Lap Trust, patron Mr. Bart Cummings. Trustees Derek Main, Anne Glendinning, Derek Barton, Catherine Main and Jerry Morris. Information plaques developed with the assistance of the Ministry of Tourism. So there it is, First Sovereign and Ministry of Tourism are the major sponsors. And here we have Phar Lap, its fountain, empty of water. Well, Phar Lap, my friend, I'm going to do something for you that's never been done before. I'm going to read your life story. It's around the wishing well there, or the pond with no water in it. I'm going to tell your life story because it's all there. So come with me and listen to what I have. This is your life, Phar Lap. The beginning. Number 1. Phar Lap was bred by Alexander Frederick Roberts, 1860 to 1931, an astute South Island stockman and farmer. Roberts retired to a fashionable area in Timaru from farming in Central Otago in 1920. Educated in England, he became known around town as the English gentleman who lived at Park Lane. He also purchased a farm of 300 acres at Seadown, about 15 kilometres north of Timaru, to serve his interest in horse breeding. Normally a bargain hunter on horse deals, in 1924 he purchased an expensive English bred sire, Night Raid, from the Australian owner breeder Paddy Wade for 700 guineas. Shortly thereafter he purchased an injured race mare named Entreaty from nearby Geraldine for 60 guineas. And in 1925 Night Raid served Entreaty for the second time. The colt conceived was you, Phar Lap. Plaque number 2. A champion is born. On October the 4th, 1926, Entreaty gave foal to a chestnut colt that was discovered that morning by Seadown studmaster John MacDonald. As a yearling, there was nothing unusual about him except that he had an intelligent look. He showed some temper when being weaned, but handled kindly and soon developed into a quiet, docile horse. Once when running in the lead with a group of yearlings, he cleared a 1.5 metre gorse fence, but isolated from his companions, he promptly jumped back into the paddock to rejoin them. He was a big, ungainly looking colt. Roberts thought him too long in the canine bones and thus likely to lack a galloping speed. He decided to sell rather than keep him, so he sent him to Trentham with 4 other Seadown yearlings for the 1928 national sales. Number 3. Well, Phar Lap, here you are at the Trentham sales. The chestnut colt by night raid from Entreaty was listed as lot 41 in the 2nd New Zealand National Horse Sales catalogue. He was the last yearling paraded in the ring on January the 24th, 1928. The ring was located where the Trentham birdcage is located today. MacDonald described him as a poor walker, inclined to trip over himself when in the sales ring. Bidding commenced at 100 guineas, but he was purchased for 160 guineas, a modest enough sum, but still the most expensive of the Roberts crop. The yearling who would later run 3rd behind him as honour in the AJC Derby sold for a record 2,300 guineas earlier that day. The purchase of lots 41 was made by an agent for an American businessman, David J. Davis, who had been living in Australia for the best part of 20 years. Davis bankrolled the purchase on the advice of battling Sydney trainer Harry Telford, who was an astute judge of breeding lines. Plaque number 4. Lightning arrives in Australia. When lot 41 arrived in Sydney, he was rejected by Davis and ordered to be sold. Telford would not hear of it and secured Davis' agreement to lease the horse for 3 years. For this, David would receive 1/3 of any winnings, but was not liable for any feeding or training fees. Lot 41 was gelded and given time by Telford to develop a galloping habit due to his large physical frame. But his initial lacklustre track work delayed his introduction to racing and led to his exotic name, a pun in his slowness corresponding to the word lightning. The name Phar Lap comes from the word for lightning in the Ziyang dialect of southern China. Aubrey Ping, a Chinese medical student present at the joking and naming episode, provided the translation. Telford accepted it, intended to make good its meaning. So there you are, Phar Lap. They called you lightning because you were slow. Plaque number 5. The importance of bloodlines. Harry Telford realised, like no other trainer of his time, the implacable breeding lines of Phar Lap tracing back not only to the great New Zealand racehorse and sire Carbine, but more importantly Miss Kate on the dam side. Miss Kate was purchased from England in 1978 and has been one of the great taproot mares of New Zealand breeding history. She anchored the pedigrees of 3 of the first 5 champions inducted into the New Zealand Racing Hall of Fame in 2006. Namely Phar Lap, Kindergarten and Sunline. Telford had learned all his horsemanship skills in New Zealand before resettling in his native Australia in 1915 at the age of 34. He was fully aware of the quality racehorses Miss Kate had produced and was delighted when he found Phar Lap's dame entry was a great-granddaughter of Miss Kate. Righto, plaque number 6. First start in February 1929. Phar Lap's racing career commenced inauspiciously on February 23rd, 1929, when he ran 9th in a field of 13. His racing education continued until he was set up to win at generous odds for his leasee owner in his 5th and final start as a 2-year-old on April 27th, 1929. The winning plunge, which returned him much more than Telford's share of the $112 of the prize money, enabled him to pay off all his debts and provide better for his family. Phar Lap returned to racing as a 3-year-old in early August 1929, but it wasn't until he ran 2nd in the Blue Ribbon Stakes at his 10th start that he returned prize money of £133. Again to Telford, this race was the first precursor to the most extraordinary winning sequence in Australian turf history. It lasted 25 months for 35 wins, 4 worthy placings and 1 unplaced start. Plaque number 7, a champion's run. Phar Lap's winning sequence was not only special, the ease with which he beat his rivals, two of them Hall of Famers, and the special weight scales introduced to handicap him to make racing against him more interesting. His runaway victory in the 1930 AJC plate, when he smashed all manners of track records with impurity, his onslaught of 4 wins in 8 days at the 1930 Melbourne Cup Racing Carnival, including the Cup itself with a record weight after a sensational shooting incident, his incredible win in the 1931 Futurity Stakes on a wet track under the stadia of 65 kilograms, and his boat trip to America to win the richest race in the world propelled him into the realm of the very best, if not only the best, the 20th century champions of the world. His feats, even today, remain incomparable. What do you think of the story so far, Phar Lap? Pretty true? Okay, let's go back here. Plaque number 8. He was beaten occasionally. Phar Lap tasted defeat on 5 occasions, once his winning rule became the habit. On 2 of those occasions he was returning from a spell, so the races were used as a track work preparation for the planned racing campaign. The other 3 occasions were at the end of the campaign, when he was suffering from an ailment as well as being grossly overweighted for the event. His final race in Australia was in the 1931 Melbourne Cup, when anchored with 68 kilograms and suffering from a kidney ailment, he finished midfield in 8th place. It was this, plus American promoters in need of a major draw card to prevent a major gambling resort from going into bankruptcy, that sent him on a 12,000-mile sea voyage to California via Wellington for his final triumph, but sudden mysterious death that transcended him into a legend. Number 9, America beckons. Agua Galante in Mexico, just across the Californian border, was established by American interest as a major gambling resort devoted to pleasure to combat the Prohibition era in America in the late 1920s. Plaque number 9, America beckons. Agua Galante in Mexico, just across the Californian border, was established by American interest as a major gambling resort devoted to pleasure to combat the Prohibition era in America in the late 1920s. It boasted the richest race in the world of $1 million US. Although the horse owners of the 3 best American horses refused to enter the race, Phar Lap was raced against the best with top weight on March the 20th, 1932, and made them look like cart horses recovering from a badly cracked hoof sustained on unfamiliar dirt track. Phar Lap won effortlessly in track record time. Years later, the Agua Galante racing secretary and handicapper France Dune was asked who the best American horse in the 20th century was, man o' war or secretariat. He answered, neither. I saw Phar Lap. Number 10 is a sad ending. On April the 5th, 1932, only 16 days after his American triumph, Phar Lap died suddenly and mysteriously at Menlo Park Stud on the outskirts of San Francisco. It rocked the world, not just Australia and New Zealand, where he was already idolised. The cause of his death remains a mystery at the core of his legend, notwithstanding recent findings of arsenic concentrations in 6 hairs from his hide. Autopsies carried out in the horse's organs by 2 adversarial American groups, the FDA authority and the University of California, revealed non-toxic levels of arsenic. Veterinary science especially now suggests he was not malicious or accidentally arsenic poisoned, but rather a form of acute enteritis caused by the stresses the horse had been subject due to travel and his intensive racing career. The Legend of Phar Lap, number 11. The horse that would become Australia's equine wonder of the century was foaled in a paddock near Timaru, New Zealand, on October the 4th, 1926, as a result of a mating between a mare with a one-race, unplaced record but sound pedigree, and a stallion with an ordinary race record but also a sound pedigree. The foal was sold at the Trentham Yearling Sales in 1928 as lot number 41, an enduring name tag still recognised today to identify Phar Lap. He was to dominate the Australian racing scene like no other horse from late 1929 until 1931, and then travelled to America for a single performance that sealed his fame and advanced his legend, the legend that is Phar Lap. Phar Lap's career earnings. This is plaque number 12. Phar Lap's actual career earnings of £70,123 is not an agreed figure. In fact, an official figure is £66,723. The difference results from the exchange rate used for converting the Aqua Gallant purse of $10,313 official to or £13,698 actual when using the rate quoted by the Daily Telegraph the day after the race. Either way, it is useless statistic for the comparisons with the millions of dollars in stake winnings modern champions amass in 2001. 7 Australian Racing Club officials and an American authority were approached to estimate the value of stakes Phar Lap would have received in the year 2000 for the same results he achieved 70 years earlier. The figure is $15,754,008 Australian dollars. Make Be Diva's 3-time Melbourne Cup winner Australian record is $14,962,685. Phar Lap, you're a champion. Phar Lap race record summary. Phar Lap had 51 starts for 37 wins, 3 seconds, 2 thirds, 9 unplaced, and he earned £66,723. His notable wins were the Maiden Juvenile Handicap, which was his first win, the Rosewell Guineas, the AJC Derby, the AJC Craven Plate, Victorian Derby, St Leger Stakes, Governor's Plate, King's Plate, Chipping Norton Stakes, St Leger, Cumberland Stakes, and the AJC Plate. Some more over here. Elder Stakes, SAJA King's Cup, Tattersalls Chelmsford Stakes, Spring Stakes, Craven Plate, the AJC Plate, Melbourne Stakes, the Melbourne Cup, the Lithgow Stakes, the Fisher Plate, Futurity Stakes, and the Aqua Galante Handicap. That was Phar Lap.